My boyfriend was a warehouse worker. The moment he got home, I forced him to go back out in the rain to buy me a $199 strawberry cake. His voice was tired. I don't have enough money. Rent's due tomorrow. Can I just buy the strawberries for now? I grabbed a throw pillow and hurled it at him. Get out, you loser. Suddenly, floating comments popped up on the screen in front of me. This villainess is scolding a billionaire heir. He was framed and lost his memory, which is why he's a warehouse worker. The real female lead will be here soon, and the male lead is about to regain his memory. Then he'll know what a liar this villainess is. This drama queen is already pregnant. She'll use her pregnancy to throw tantrums, but she'll be taken care of right after giving birth, and the child will be poor. I touched my lower belly, completely stunned. Just then the door opened. Johnson came back, soaked to the bone, holding a small piece of strawberry cake. He looked at me nervously, carefully saying, I unloaded another truckload of goods. I bought you the cake. Please don't kick me out again, okay? Those words from the comments were still floating in front of me. Villainous billionaire heir, liar, pregnant, taken care of, child abused. My legs felt a little weak. Normally, I would have snatched the cake, cursed him a few more times for being a good-for-nothing, then devoured it all and made him sleep on the couch. But today I didn't dare. I took a deep breath, my voice a bit dry. You go change your wet clothes first. Johnson clearly froze. He probably thought I'd keep yelling at him. He nervously held out the strawberry cake. I didn't mean not to comfort you earlier. I just wanted to unload more goods, earn enough money to buy you the cake. The man was drenched, his old clothes clinging to his strong chest and abs. I looked at his hands, which were pale and wrinkled from the rain. A chill went down my spine. For the past year, I had constantly yelled at and berated him, and he had never talked back. I said, go change your clothes first. I turned my face away, my voice tight. Johnson lowered his eyes. Okay, I'll go right away. He put down the cake and fumbled for dry clothes. While he was in the bathroom, I stared at the cake on the table, tears almost falling. If I wasn't pregnant, it would be fine, but what if I really was? Is this villainess finally scared? Too late. Honestly, it's too late for her to act nice now. The female lead is already on her way. Poor male lead, he's been yelled at for so long. I bit my lip, forcing the tears back. Johnson came out in dry clothes, saw me staring blankly at the cake, and cautiously said, want me to feed you? I grabbed the cake. Come on, let's return it. Huh. He was confused. It's too expensive. How many shifts would you have to work for this? Let's return it. I pulled him and started walking out. Johnson was dragged along, his face full of disbelief. Aren't you the one who wanted strawberry cake the most? Not anymore. I didn't dare look at him. After returning the cake, I took the $199 and stuffed it into his pocket. For rent. Johnson stood there. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. He just looked at me, his eyes holding an indescribable light, a mix of surprise and heartache. Simmons, are you on your period? He asked tentatively. No. I almost cursed again but bit it back. Let's go home. Our rental apartment only had one bed. That night, I curled up on the very edge, my back to him. Johnson got into bed after his shower. After a long silence, he suddenly said in a low voice, I'm really tired today. Can we not try anything fancy? My body stiffened. Try anything fancy was his euphemism. But now the comments that I was pregnant. I instinctively covered my lower belly, my mind a mess. Let's just sleep. My voice was muffled. It was quiet for a few seconds behind me. Johnson softly said, oh. His tone tinged with disappointment and confusion. Why is the male lead disappointed? We don't approve. The male lead is only being good to the villainess because he was tricked. Once he regains his memory, he'll know she lied to him. Female lead, more hurry up. I buried my face in the pillow. I barely slept a wink all night. Johnson, on the other hand, was asleep, his breathing even, one arm still draped over my waist. Even though I'd rejected him, he still habitually protected me. As soon as dawn broke, he quietly got up. I pretended to be asleep, peeking at him through narrowed eyes. He tiptoed to the kitchen, cooked oatmeal, fried eggs and bacon. Johnson then quickly ate his portion, leaving mine warming in the pot. He walked to the door, then turned back, kissing my forehead very lightly. After the door closed, I waited a few minutes, then immediately got up. Ignoring breakfast, I put on a mask and went to the pharmacy to buy 2 different brands of pregnancy tests. Back home, I rushed into the bathroom, my hands shaking so much I almost couldn't open the packaging. Those few minutes of waiting were the longest minutes of my life. 2 lines. Both tests showed 2 lines. I sat on the toilet, my legs too weak to stand. I really was pregnant. I suddenly remembered the first time I met Johnson. He was in an accident at a construction site and was sent to the hospital, the back of his head covered in blood. But that face, that demeanor, you could tell he wasn't an ordinary person. I was possessed, and when he woke up, I told him, "I covered your $50,000 in medical bills. I'm your lifesaver." I thought he'd be eternally grateful and give me hundreds of thousands, or even millions as a reward. Instead, he honestly said, "Thank you, but I'm just a construction worker. I'll work hard to pay you back." I was stunned then, but his face was so handsome, and he was so compliant with me. Before I knew it, we were together. Later, I quit my nurse job and let him support me. I hated that he was poor, so I cursed him every day, made him do this and that, and constantly told him to get out. He never said a single no. Thinking back now, how could he be so good to me when I treated him so terribly? I covered my face, unable to even cry aloud. Now you know how to cry? What were you doing before? The villain is also pitiful. Vanity is fun for a while, but the crematorium is unavoidable. I came out of the bathroom, washed my face, and looked at my swollen eyes in the mirror. No, I couldn't just sit there and wait to die. The comments said I'd use my pregnancy to throw tantrums, be clingy, and refuse to let go. So I wouldn't throw tantrums and I wouldn't be clingy. I had to find a way to survive and save my child. But, would Johnson still be good to me, who had lied to him after he regained his memory? I sat on the edge of the bed, lost in thought, suddenly remembering the things I used to yell at him. "You're a loser. I must have been blind to get with you. You'll never be able to afford a house in your life." He just remained silent then, and worked even harder, doing construction and running food deliveries. I clutched my chest, it ached terribly. In the afternoon, I forced myself to go grocery shopping, wanting to learn how to cook. Before, Johnson always cooked when he came back. I never even stepped into the kitchen. After 2 hours of struggling, I made a plate of completely burnt pork chops. In the end, I ate 2 slices of bread for dinner. When Johnson came home that evening, he saw the tidy department, then the bread and 2 plates of dark cuisine on the table. He froze. "You made these?" His voice was tight. I lowered my head. "Yeah, try some." He picked up a fork, ate a bite of the black pork chop, and swallowed it without changing his expression. "It's delicious." My nose stung, and I almost cried. He put down his utensils, frowning as he looked at my hands. "Don't do this anymore. I'll cook when I get back." I shook my head hard. "You can't do everything. You're already so tired from work." Johnson was silent for a few seconds, then suddenly grabbed my hand. "What's wrong with you? Male lead, don't touch her." This villainess suddenly got smart. Is she faking it now? Even if she does this, it won't change the fact that she lied to the male lead. He'll definitely settle scores with her when he regains his memory. I was startled and pulled my hand back. "And nothing's wrong." He looked at me, his eyes holding tenderness, confusion, and an emotion I couldn't quite place. I was restless, terrified he'd see through me. Over the next few days, I was like a different person. Instead of sleeping until noon, I woke up early to have breakfast with Johnson. After he left, I did the laundry, even though I ruined one of his work uniforms. I also tried to learn how to cook, though the results were still pretty terrible. Every time Johnson came back, he'd silently take over the chores from me, pushing me onto the couch. "Rest, I'll do it." Why is she faking being so virtuous? Why didn't she think about being good to him when she used to yell at and hit him? LOL, even begging won't work. Female lead more has already arrived. The villainous fate in the later stages will be miserable, just wait and see. Every time I saw these comments, my heart felt like it was being squeezed. But the better I treated him, the higher my chances of survival later. Even if he regained his memory and didn't want me, at least he'd remember these few days of me being good, right? Johnson also started acting strangely recently. He kept getting calls from unknown numbers in the evenings. Each time he'd go out to the balcony or outside the door to answer, his voice very low. He'd come back looking serious. When I asked who it was, he'd say the foreman from the warehouse. I didn't believe it. The comments said more had found him. One night, he went to the balcony again to take a call. I quietly followed, and through the crack in the door, I heard him say, "I don't remember anything from before. I have a girlfriend now. Please don't come looking for me anymore." Then he hung up and stood on the balcony for a long time. I retreated back to bed, my heart pounding. The male lead is so devoted, so loyal even with amnesia. He'll still choose more after regaining his memory. They're from compatible backgrounds, you know. The villainess doesn't deserve the male lead's true feelings. Why didn't she think about today when she was yelling at and hitting him? After we laid down that night, Johnson turned over to face me. "Simmons," he called me. I'm not too tired today. What kind of fancy stuff do you want to try? I'm open to anything." I opened my mouth, unable to speak. Finally, I managed to blurt out, "I don't want to." He reached out and touched my face. "Did I do something wrong? Tell me, I'll change it." I took a deep breath, wanting to throw caution to the wind. "Johnson, I'm actually preg." Before I could finish, his phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the caller ID, his brows furrowing. He hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Hello." I don't know what the other side said, but his expression changed from confusion to shock, and finally to a seriousness I'd never seen before. "I understand." He hung up and immediately sat up to get dressed. "What's wrong?" I asked nervously. "Something urgent came up." "You go to sleep first, don't wait for me." He quickly kissed my forehead, put on his shoes and left. The moment the door closed, comments floated across my vision. "Moore has arrived with a neurosurgeon. They're helping the male lead regain his memory tonight. The villainous good days end here. By this time tomorrow, Johnson will be a billionaire heir, with no connection to this rental apartment." I sat alone in the darkness, feeling cold all over. Johnson didn't come home all night. At 10 in the morning, there was a knock on the door. At 10 in the morning, there was a knock at the door. I froze for a second, still sitting on the edge of the bed. Another knock followed, steady, unhurried. I stood up and walked over. When I opened it, the hallway light spilled in. Johnson was there. Not in the worn work clothes anymore. He had on a clean dark jacket, hair slightly damp like he'd just stepped out of a car. His face looked the same, but the feeling of him was different. Sharper. More distant. Behind him stood the suited man from yesterday, waiting near the stairwell. My grip tightened on the door. "Johnson," I said. He looked at me for a moment before speaking. "Can I come in?" My mouth opened then closed again. I stepped aside. He walked in slowly, like he was checking the space as he entered it. His eyes passed over the small apartment, the half-packed items from last night, the kitchen table still slightly messy. He stopped near the center of the room. The silence stretched. I couldn't tell if my heartbeat was too loud, or if everything else had just gone quiet. "You remember everything now," I said. "Yes." Just that. One word, clean and final. My fingers curled into my palm. "So, what happens next?" Johnson didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document, placing it on the table. "I've made arrangements," he said. "Housing, medical care, monthly support. Everything related to the child will be handled." I stared at the paper, but didn't touch it. "And me?" I asked. His eyes lifted slightly. "You'll be safe." That wasn't what I meant. I let out a short breath, almost a laugh. Safe isn't the same as being part of your life. Something flickered in his expression at that, but it passed quickly. "I'm not continuing that relationship," he said. Straightforward. No hesitation. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to keep standing. "You really hate me that much?" He finally looked directly at me. "I don't hate you." The answer came too fast to be emotional. "It's just done." That word landed heavier than anger would have. Done. Like something that had already been completed somewhere else. and I was only seeing the leftover pieces. My gaze dropped to the document again. So I'm just a responsibility now. A pause. That's one way to put it, he said. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady myself. You used to sleep next to me, I said. You used to. I remember, he cut in, not harsh, just firm enough that it stopped me. Silence returned. He glanced toward the bedroom for a moment, then back to me. There's something else I need to confirm. My stomach tightened slightly. What? His voice lowered. About the pregnancy. I instinctively placed a hand over my stomach. I already told you. I know it's real, he said. That's not the question. I frowned. Then what is? His eyes stayed on me for a long moment. Is it mine by choice, he said. Or mine by accident I'm being tied to? The question hit clean. No emotion wrapped around it. Just structure. Logic. Control. My throat went dry. I didn't do anything like that, I said quickly. I didn't trick you. I didn't plan this. Johnson watched me carefully. Not accusing. Just evaluating. After a few seconds, he nodded once. All right. That was it. No relief. No warmth. Just acceptance of information. He turned slightly, as if ready to leave the conversation there. Something in me snapped at the finality of it. You really think you can just walk in, fix everything with money, and leave like none of it mattered? His gaze came back. I'm not fixing it, he said. I'm closing it. That word again. Closing. I stepped forward without thinking. You don't get to decide. I meant nothing. For the first time, his expression changed slightly, tired, maybe, or restrained. I'm not saying you meant nothing, he said. A pause. I'm saying I can't go back to it. The room felt smaller again. The suited man appeared briefly at the doorway. Sir, the schedule. Johnson raised a hand slightly. The man stopped. Johnson looked back at me. There will be no contact outside of child arrangements, he said. Everything else will go through legal channels. I stared at him. You're really gone. He didn't correct me. He didn't soften it either. After a moment, he nodded once. Yes. The word wasn't sharp. Just certain. He turned toward the door. I didn't stop him. My body didn't move. But as he reached the doorway, he paused for half a second, not looking back fully. Just enough to speak. You should take care of yourself, he said. Then he left. The door closed behind him. This time, it didn't feel like an ending that arrived suddenly. It felt like one that had already finished a long time ago. And I was only hearing the last sound of it now. I stood there for a long time after the door closed. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the old refrigerator humming in the kitchen. The comments slowly drifted across my vision. Well, that's that. The official breakup arc. The villainess got off easy. At least the child is secure. For once, I wanted them to shut up. I grabbed the nearest throw pillow and hurled it at the wall. The comments kept floating. See? Temper issues. That's why she got dumped. Shut up. I yelled. The pillow dropped to the floor. The comments disappeared for a few seconds. Then, LOL, she yelled at us. I almost threw something else. Instead, I sat down heavily on the couch and buried my face in my hands. Everything hurt. Not because Johnson had left. Okay, maybe partly because of that. But mostly because there was no fixing this. No grand explanation. No misunderstanding. No secret villain pulling strings. I had genuinely treated him badly. And somehow that made it worse. 3 days later, I moved into the apartment Johnson's people arranged. It was clean. Comfortable. Way bigger than the place we'd rented together. I hated it. The kitchen was too nice. The couch was too soft. The silence was too expensive. The comments seemed to agree. Look at that. The villainess upgraded. The male lead is generous. One morning, while I was eating breakfast, another comment appeared. Wait. Female lead incoming. I nearly choked on my oatmeal. What? More has arrived. I immediately stood up. Where? The comments, of course, didn't answer. Useless. 2 hours later, my doorbell rang. I opened it. A beautiful woman stood outside. Long dark hair. Elegant dress. Perfect posture. The kind of person who looked like she'd never once worried about rent in her life. The comments exploded. It's her. The female lead. Canon event. The woman smiled politely. Hello. Are you Simmons? I stared. You're more? She blinked. Then laughed. Oh. My stomach dropped. She knew exactly who I was. Can I come in? She asked. 10 minutes later, we were sitting across from each other at my dining table. I had prepared for this moment. The woman Johnson was destined to love. The woman he was supposed to end up with. The woman who would probably look at me like I was trash. Instead, Moore accepted a cup of tea and said, "Thank you." I stared. She stared back. Finally she tilted her head. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I almost laughed. Because she wasn't acting like the female lead. She was acting like a normal person. The comments looked confused too. Wait. Why isn't she being hostile? Moore took a sip of tea. Then she said something that made me nearly drop my cup. Johnson is an idiot. What? She nodded. A complete idiot. The comments froze. I froze. Moore sighed. Do you know how many times I've told him I'm not interested in him? My brain stopped working. Excuse me. I've known him since childhood, she said. Our families are close. That's all. I stared. The comments stared. Everybody stared. Then the comments exploded. What? That's not the plot. Moore rubbed her forehead. Honestly, I don't know why everyone keeps assuming we're supposed to get married. My mouth slowly opened. The comments looked like they were having a collective nervous breakdown. Wait. Moore set down her cup. I actually came here because Johnson asked me to check on you. The room went silent. My heartbeat skipped. He did. Yes. She looked at me carefully. Then at my stomach. Then back at me. He was worried. I laughed immediately. A short, bitter sound. Worried? The man who'd just cut me out of his life? The man who'd arranged lawyers? The man who'd walked away without looking back? That man? Moore nodded. He pretends he's made of stone when he's upset. I looked away. He isn't upset. A long pause. Then Moore said quietly, Simmons. I looked back. For the first time since arriving, her expression became serious. Do you really think a man who didn't care would have spent the entire night sitting outside an operating room refusing to leave, because he remembered you were pregnant? I froze. The comments froze. Everything froze. Moore sighed. When he got his memories back, the first thing he did wasn't ask about his company. The first thing wasn't his family. The first thing wasn't his inheritance. My fingers tightened around my cup. Moore looked directly at me. The first thing he asked was whether you had eaten dinner. The tea suddenly tasted strange. My vision blurred slightly. The comments had completely lost their minds. Wait. What? That's not how this story goes. For the first time since they appeared, I found myself agreeing with them. Because maybe nobody knew how this story went anymore. More dangerous than if he'd hated me. The phone calls kept happening. At first, once a week. Then every few days. Always for a reason. At least, that was the excuse. Did the doctor appointment go well? Did you eat? The weather report says there's a storm coming. The pharmacy forgot one of your prescriptions. Every call was short. Every call was awkward. And every call ended before either of us said anything we actually wanted to say. The comments were unbearable. Look at them. 2 idiots. Just kiss already. I ignored them. Mostly because they were right. 3 months later, I went into labor. And naturally, it happened at the worst possible time. At 2 in the morning. During a thunderstorm. While I was home alone. The first contraction nearly folded me in half. The second one made me realize this wasn't a false alarm. The comments immediately started panicking. Baby arc. Baby arc. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands. There were dozens of contacts. Doctors. Emergency services. More. But my thumb stopped on one name. Johnson. I stared at it for a second. Then pressed call. He answered before the first ring finished. Simmons. His voice sounded awake instantly. I think I gasped. Another contraction hit. I think the baby's coming. The line went silent. Then, I'm on my way. The call ended. No questions. No hesitation. Nothing. Just I'm on my way. 30 minutes later, I was in the hospital. Johnson was beside me, still wearing house clothes. His hair was a mess. One shoe wasn't even tied properly. The comments were losing their minds. The billionaire heir drove here looking like that? I would have laughed if I wasn't busy screaming. 12 hours later, our daughter was born. The moment the nurse placed her into my arms, everything else disappeared. The comments disappeared. The room disappeared. Even the pain disappeared. She was tiny, red-faced, angry, perfect. Tears immediately spilled down my face. Johnson stood beside the bed, staring at her. I'd never seen that expression before. Not happiness. Not relief. Something softer. Something defenseless. The nurse laughed. Would Dad like to hold her? Johnson looked genuinely alarmed. The nurse put the baby into his arms anyway. Our daughter immediately grabbed one of his fingers. Johnson froze. Completely. The billionaire heir. The man who could negotiate billion-dollar contracts. Defeated by a 6-pound newborn. The comments had never loved anyone more. I was crying and laughing at the same time. For the first time in months, Johnson looked at me. Really looked at me. Neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. A week later, after we returned home, I found him standing on the balcony, looking out at the city, the same way he used to stand on the old apartment balcony. The sight made my chest ache. I walked over slowly. Our daughter was asleep inside. The apartment was quiet. The wind was cool. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then I took a deep breath. I owe you an apology. Johnson didn't look at me, but he listened. So I kept going. I was selfish. My voice shook. I was cruel. The words were ugly. Necessary. I kept taking and taking from you. The city lights blurred slightly. I treated you badly. A long silence followed. Then I laughed weakly. Honestly, if I were you, I'd probably hate me too. Johnson finally turned. His eyes met mine. I don't hate you. Just like before. Only this time it sounded different. Not distant. Not cold. Just true. My throat tightened. I know. A faint smile appeared on his face. The first real smile I'd seen since he got his memories back. Small. Tired. Beautiful. You know, he said. What? I hated the strawberry cake. I stared. Then blinked. What? It wasn't even good. I laughed so hard I nearly cried. For a moment he laughed too. And suddenly we weren't standing in the shadow of everything that had happened. We were just two exhausted parents standing on a balcony. The silence that followed felt warm. Comfortable. Then Johnson reached into his pocket. My heart skipped. He pulled out something small. A ring box. The comments exploded. Oh my God. He's actually doing it. Johnson looked almost embarrassed. Which was impressive considering the man negotiated mergers for a living. I bought this months ago. I stared at him. Months ago. He looked away. Before the accident. My breath caught. The comments went dead silent. Johnson opened the box. Inside was a simple ring. Nothing flashy. Nothing extravagant. Just beautiful. His voice was quiet. When I couldn't remember my past. He swallowed. I still wanted to marry you. Tears immediately filled my eyes. Johnson. He shook his head. Back then I didn't know everything. A pause. But now I do. His gaze met mine again. Steady. Certain. The same way it had been the day he walked away. Only this time he wasn't leaving. I know exactly who you are. My vision blurred completely. And I whispered. The corner of his mouth lifted. And you're still the person I want to come home to. That did it. I burst into tears. The ugly kind. The embarrassing kind. Johnson looked horrified. Why are you crying? Shut up. I'm serious. Shut up. The comments returned immediately. She's still mean. Some things never change. For once nobody argued. A minute later, Johnson slipped the ring onto my finger. Inside, our daughter started crying. Neither of us moved. The baby cried louder. Still neither of us moved. Finally Johnson sighed. We should probably get her. Yeah. Neither of us moved. The comments were disgusted. Terrible parent. Eventually we both ran inside at the same time and crashed into each other in the doorway. The baby cried even louder. The comments laughed. Johnson laughed. I laughed. And for the first time since those strange comments appeared in my life, the future felt unwritten. Not because I was afraid of it, because it finally belonged to us.